I'm just a girl. But I do cleanse and exercise homes. I want to talk about what people get wrong about this, or like, I don't know, what their prior belief system is and what the reality is. Also, a little bit of what brought me here. I'd have to say the first thing is being in a haunted apartment in my 20s. Maybe that was my initial calling and I didn't even realize it. When we saw the home, we knew we had to get it. We literally ran to an ATM. Was it in a basement? Yes. Did have windows though. Was it haunted? Definitely. Neither of us realized it at the time, although we should have had our suspicions because it was in a renovated hospital, a very famous hospital. In fact, I believe it is where Albert Einstein got surgery. I would personally hear a lot of things. She would have a lot of poltergeist experiences. I do feel like hauntings are, which I'll get into a little bit, very personal and very like lesson oriented in general. So it's interesting that we both had very different experiences. It could also be because I'm a little bit more spiritually in tuned. I was having more like Claire audience experiences happening to me. And since maybe she wasn't as much at the time or just was in a state of disbelief, hers were a little bit more intense. Magnets coming across the room, off of the fridge, items, being thrown across the room. Usually this was just revealed the next day. There was one instance where a dish flew out of the dish rack. That was in real time. And then a light bulb blew out at the same time. The things that I would hear would be like ambient kind of noises in general, but very loud, very real. Anytime and every time I ever tried to investigate these things happening, they would immediately stop. So like once I kind of paid closer attention, I guess you could say, it was all over. But yeah, I would hear like typing like on like a really like chunky keyboard. Remember those back in the day? I once woke up to someone screaming, "Hello? Name please?" Which I think actually made a lot of sense because where we were at, it was like where an emergency truck or like vehicle would enter and where patients would come into the hospital. So yeah, things of that nature. I did also have sleep paralysis at one point where I was on an operating table. Not so fun, but yeah. I would hear things drop all the time, especially in our bathroom, because that would echo because of the tile floor. So I would constantly go to the bathroom and be like, what the heck dropped? Nothing dropped. Still, I never anticipated that this was the kind of work that I would do. Even when my intuition opened up and I was literally reading clients at first for free and then ultimately having clients pay me for it, I still did not think I would do any sort of energetic cleansing work. To be honest, I was really a little bit scared and overwhelmed of doing that because I'm like, yes, there are things that I know and understand more about this process because I can read and channel energy, but also at the same time, I don't know. I'm just a girl. I think that what I first want to address is the disbelief that people or things can be haunted. And like, yes, it is true that I think a lot of times these things are sensationalized and taken out of context and just like dramatized overall in some way, shape, or form. It's really easy to speak about that when it's not happening to you, right? Like, so I think that, if I always say if you don't believe, it is such like an entitlement and a blessing. And like, I know that sounds really rude and harsh, but as someone who didn't really anticipate their intuition opening up and how it at first destroyed my life and then elevated my life, like there was some resentment. And there was some resentment. But yeah, if you feel safe and comfortable in your own home, that is, I don't know if I should say entitlement, but like, you should have a lot of gratitude for that. That's not the case for a lot of people, even if it's not in the supernatural realm. So, when people have problems like this, who do they go to? Who do they reach out to? So misconception number one, people are haunted all the time. It's just not always literal. You can be haunted by demons, which are mental and emotional. And I feel like 100% of the population, this is true for, even if it's not like actively knocking on their door or their head every single day, or they're aware of it. Like we hold on to painful experiences, traumas and memories, things of that nature. And unless we're actively releasing it, it stays with us in our orb, in our ethers, whatever you want to call it. So yes, people are haunted. It's just not always so obvious. The other thing that's interesting is that I do feel like, yes, as certain people can be magnets to this kind of stuff, right? Just depending on whatever they need to learn or go through or experience in this lifetime. What I find really interesting is that a lot of people who are haunted tend to be very energetically powerful, and they unintentionally are likely contributing to this. The best way I can describe this is like a Ouija board, right? Like, you're playing the game, you have your hands that are moving things, and that is like 50% of it, right? Like external energies can certainly manipulate it, but you're putting that energy out there for it to come back. It takes two to tango in the energetic game, right? So you are part of this. So a lot of times people who are spiritually in tune, you can kind of see this on like those, ghost TV shows, right? Like if there are a lot of energetically powerful people, chances are there's going to be more communication in general. So not saying that it is a blessing to be haunted, but I don't know. I think there's like an interesting magical element to it. Okay, I need to talk about this. Spirits aren't really inherently evil or ghosts. They're just scared. They're just scared. Just like you and me. Sometimes they don't know that they're dead. Sometimes you need to have that conversation with them. So, there's so many ways that energy can linger. There are some things that I call like resonant energy, which is that it's like energy, it's almost like you make something and then you send that out into the world. So like residual energy is kind of on that thing. So I think that is the case with so many things on our planet. There's just residual energy. It just kind of is what it is. Then there's kind of like active spirituality where, dimensions are soft and there's, literally ways that interdimensional beings can coexist with us. And I think that that happens probably more than we would like to think, but it's just not necessarily as obvious because there isn't the need for communication. So all these things can exist. People don't make it their business, or ghosts don't make it their business to necessarily communicate with you. But again, if there's a lesson to be learned on both sides, that can certainly be the case. Instances that I have experienced are if there is an energy which is a like soul to you, like they have a similar relationship to somebody that you've had here in the physical world, they kind of like feel this kindred spirit with you, so they kind of hang around. So that's a very common thing, and that would make sense that if an relationship that you've had in the physical world here on earth has ended and there's like a little bit of a hole, right, or a gap, there's a spirit that is like, oh, you kind of remind me of this person that I knew here in the physical world. You both kind of have these energies or these lessons to tie up, and you both happen to be a match for each other. So that can certainly be something that happens. But even like when I visited Alcatraz, which was really the first moment in time, and that's when I moved to California, that I started to understand energies, like intellectualize them, I guess you could say. The biggest thing that I noticed was that these people were not evil. They were just so deeply traumatized throughout their life, and they were in so, so, so much pain. And that's really the case with a lot of lingering spirits, in my opinion, that they're in so much pain that they're afraid to go on to the next level because, and that would be the other side, or, to the light, whatever you want to call it, because they don't know what's on the other side. And this is so true for us in our chapters and journeys here in the physical world. We don't know what's next, right? And it's a little scary, especially if we've had not so good experiences. That's a good segue because that's really what I do as a channeler. I'm not someone coming in with holy water and dousing it all over the place, and saying prayers, although I do actually think there's merit in that. Like I think that those practices can raise the vibration and words have intention. So it's definitely not useless. But I think what's even more prominent and important and is a stronger means of connection is you actually communicating with the spirit, understanding why it's here and why it's afraid to move forward, and then gracefully kind of moving it to the next level. And that, in my opinion, is true evolution and change, and release of hauntings, right? And this is metaphorical for the memories that you have yourself, the demons, right, haunting you. Like you need to connect to it, understand it, and then let it go. Excellent advice, in my opinion. Hauntings are just like literal hauntings are metaphoric for like anything and everything. It's wild. I just hope that we can get to a place where the understanding that we have of hauntings is more metaphoric than it is literal. We're comprehending that there is so much more logic to the universe that we think. And that, if I had to summarize any advice to anybody asking me about anything spiritual, that's what I would say. There's so much more logic than we think. People are so afraid of things that they don't know and understand that they ultimately become victims to it, right? And that's not the case. Like we're very proactive partners in this thing called life, and our connection with the other side. And it's just so important for us to understand that and take responsibility. It will just make things so much easier for us in the long run. And I think that we can really have a great relationship and coexistence with spirits and other energies outside of us. And, the disbelief and the fear, it doesn't really do anything for us. Like, think about it. Does disbelief and fear really do anything for us, like in the long run, or does it just keep us in our place and make us feel cozy and comfortable? So anyway, if you've made it this far, wow. I just really appreciate your open-mindedness to know and understand more about this information. Obviously, there's resources out there if you are struggling with a haunting in any sense of the word. And it's just good to take seriously, I guess you could say, or just prioritize it because you don't want things lingering for a long time. But, you know, simultaneously understand your role in this larger picture. That's all I got.